common sense approach to money in a world of total insanity. Let's welcome Tony D'Angelo.
All right, so I woke up today. I was happy. Tom Brady was out of the playoffs. I'm sick of him. I just had that good feeling. Wanted to talk to people. And then the first hour was a little chaotic. I had to apologize to Bob Lazari. I got a little mad. Now, I feel good because my pal Tony D'Angelo is going to join us, and he'll settle me down. And Tony D, you can follow him on Twitter, Tony D'Angelo7. And I always appreciate him. He's been coming on now for a couple of years here on Tuesdays at 7:05 with a huge following, and we appreciate that. Tony, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Lee Elci. Good morning, everybody. Proud to be among you. Well, I don't know if I'm as tranquil as you today. I loved your excellent monologue, and you were speaking about the COVID-19 and the how the hype came and how we all were injured by bad judgments and things like that. And I'm not nearly as forgiving as you might be, and that's certainly not an accusation on you at all. We all have our opinions, but when I went back and I started to look at when we started to question the statistics, and I'm going back close to 3 years ago. My notes, April 7th, 2020, April 10th, 2020, and the Department of Health, our lovely Department of Health in the state of Connecticut, making the determinations for what is a COVID-19 demise. In 3 days, and I've got this all written out because we went over this on the show of April 14th, 2020. Don't ask me what I had for dinner last night, but I write things down. For public health surveillance on April 7th, we were doing laboratory-confirmed COVID-19 demises, and even then we said that wasn't necessarily the cause of death. Now, on April 10th, it was anything goes when the whistle blows. It was if it's on the death certificate, it's COVID-19. And there was a lot of jockeying back and forth, and if you'll recall that show, we went through the changes in the determination, and what our lovely DPH was trying to do was trying to massage these statistics because they didn't want to admit the fact of the Candace Owens incident with the COVID baby, which wasn't COVID. So it was, kind of funny business as we go on. And then if you listen to Renee Coleman Mitchell, Dr. Renee Coleman Mitchell, in later periods talking about some of the stuff that was happening, it was right within that time frame. And any junior college statistics student with a C average knows, and this is the thing, it freaked me out then, it triply freaked me out now, it's going to freak me out more in this segment, as you'll see, knows that if you change the definition of a given criteria, you change the outcome. And they just didn't want us to know that. But as we go down, and as time goes on, what you said this morning, what I just said, this is now well published in the mainstream, and they're kind of asking for forgiveness for fraud, as far as I'm concerned. Over the weekend, there is a woman, I'm not terribly familiar with her because I don't watch. Her name is Dr. Liana Wen, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. She's a CNN contributor. And she comes out and says, we've been overcounting COVID demises, 2.5 years late. And she says, well, none of this was really in bad faith. Please excuse us. We were doing our best. And to your point earlier, you want an excuse me. Lives were ruined. Businesses were wrecked. Downtowns were wrecked. Economies were wrecked. Fear-mongering went on. And, the saddest thing is, to me, maybe I watch too many old movies. Maybe I believe in right versus wrong. Forgive me. Pray for me. But these people making these determinations, the Reopen Connecticut Committee in Advanced CT, which they will not let us see, which no political figure will dare raise a voice and say, we really got to look at these files for the sake of, public health and safety and, what little integrity we may have left. These people who made these calls, who come on with the smiling faces saying, oh, I'm sorry, they're still employed, they're still getting paid, they still retire, they still go off on our nickel. Lee Elci, I have had it. I have really had it.
So I'll just sort of reposition my position. that I had earlier on, just so make sure everybody understands. I'm forgiving of the original response because everybody was scared to death, right? I think, and everybody didn't know what they were doing, including the top level government people. So the first, I'm going to give it 4 or 5 months of this whole pandemic, I gave a pass to everybody, and I still kind of give a pass to everybody because I think for the most part, everybody was genuinely scared because we thought we didn't know what we thought, right? We thought we were going to we were going to die if we touched this COVID.
That was given to us,
right?
Yes.
So as soon as we realized that it wasn't the case, and I think the death rate was below that of became below that of the flu, to continue to badger people and keep kids home from school and to shut down businesses and to shut down people's lives, it's borderline criminal. I mean, what happened after that?
It's fraud.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. 1,000%.
It's fraud. And I mean, to remove people from the military and from, public safety professions and you don't come back in this office unless you're vaccinated.
Yeah.
And
and on top,
I can only pray that we get more on this.
And on top of that, Tony, if they find out, and evidence is coming out, if they find out that people are getting sick because of this vaccine and dying, oh my!
God help us all.
If these people are dropping dead because of the vaccine, man, that's all the conspiracy theories rolled into one. But that is a horror show.
Beyond what I could possibly imagine at this point, but you're absolutely right.
And so where do we go from that? Do we continue? I hope we continue to investigate that. We all see what's happening on the nightly news where 30-year-olds, 35-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 18-year-olds are just dying for no reason. Are we going to follow up on that as a nation and figure out if this is, the cause and effect is actually the COVID vaccine?
Well, this is the first time that I can think of in my history, in my age, where something like this, which is, beyond any kind of crud that you can think of, where there wasn't an investigation, there wasn't people raising questions, there wasn't an oversight. Honestly, truthfully, it gets to the point in this world where I can't proceed on any assumption, but yeah, we do need investigations
right.
as to what went on. And the whole hide the ball thing, just like, and the tolerance of the hide the ball thing just makes me want to put my head through a plexiglass window.
Too, Tony, this is a situation where, so somebody like me or you, and we talk about this and we say, okay, something doesn't feel right here. Everyone gets offended. Like in the medical community, it's offended. People who are pro-vax
get... How dare you question us?
Yeah, listen, I think the medical community and people who go out and become doctors and surgeons, it's got to be the most satisfying, fulfilling career somebody can have. You save somebody's life. It's flat out amazing. But let's not act like in the history of this country or this planet, they haven't created different either vaccines or medicines that have killed people, because they have.
Well, they certainly have. But even if we want to forgive them for that, if you want to keep that as a given, if you're manipulating data, which is what went on, which went through, go back and read those initial pronouncements. I've got them. I've saved them all. And you're manipulating data to elicit a desired result. That's fraud. That's racketeering. That's concealment. Within 3-4 days, you change the definition to make it look a whole lot worse than it really is.
Right.
And you're increasing the numbers, and it's, oh my God, and you had Bill de Blasio just, picking homeless deaths off the street. Oh, they're all due to COVID.
Right.
You had all this crazy stuff.
Oh yeah. Like I said, in the beginning, we were fearful that people were going to wind up in the hospitals. They were going to overcrowding.
Yeah.
None of that happened. None of it happened in this country. Maybe in other countries it happened to a certain extent, but almost none of it happened here. So anyway.
Well, basic human adulting says that when you have a situation, you proceed with the knowledge that you have and you mitigate damages until. None of this went on. It was just a mass panic.
Agreed. Tony D'Angelo, Tony D'Angelo 7 joins us every Tuesday, usually brings a couple topics to the table. So we got COVID. You want to go from COVID to more semaphore?
Let's put it this way. Let's see how much more irritated I am. We had that article Friday the 13th news dump on semaphore and the reworking of the loan, and we've been through that kind of chapter and verse on this show of what's really going on. And what I want to point out here is that, and this is where, talk about putting my head through a plexiglass window. And I'm going to use my father's terms, I fought like hell to get the loan documents out of the state for Semaphore. And we came across this 2% sweetheart loan that Semaphore was given. Nobody mentions that, no Democrat, no Republican, no media source. You hear about that here and possibly several other places that are not the places I just mentioned. But with this loan that came in, it basically was, as far as the obligation to repay it, we had three parties to it. We had Mount Sinai Genomics, we had Semaphore, and we had the state. Mount Sinai Genomics was supposed to co-sign the loan. I use the term loan guarantee. That's really a fancy term for co-signer. And right before the SPAC offering, telling no one, our lovely DECD removed that. So basically sticking the taxpayers with this mess. I mean, this is the equivalent. If you break this down in the simplest terms, the despicable garbage that goes on, this is the equivalent, Lee Elci, of me taking your mortgage money and saying, hey, Bob Lazzari's got a hot tip on the horse. You give him your mortgage money. Well, who's going to pay me back, says Lee Elci. Not a problem. Kathy D'Angelo will guarantee your loan. And Bob makes a bad bet on the horse, and I remove Kathy's guarantee without telling you. This is what went on. I can't make it any plainer than that. And on SPAC day, they had the money to write the check. I mean, basically, they could have said, okay, great, but what we did was, us taxpayers fueled the Lamont coffers by doing this. And it's like, everybody knew it. Nobody said a word. And it's just, it drives me absolutely crazy. But what really got me in the article as I was reading it, because I've got the documents, and the loan forgiveness, which is this typical thing of, well, if you keep the jobs, you we'll forgive the loan. That's okay. That's the purpose of what we're doing. But they used a little trick here, and the trick is something known, it's an age-old trick known as salami accounting. And if you put a salami on a table, and if you cut a little bit in one end, cut a little bit in the other end, you cut a little bit in one end, you cut a little bit in the other end, you're left with, and you scrape the pieces on the end off the table, you're left with a much smaller salami. So what they did was they said, Semaphore plans to repay $2 million. Well, I like the word plans to repay. I went down the SEC docs. I went down everything I could say. No money has changed hands. Nothing in an 8K said they did this. This is an investor disclosure. Look it up for yourselves. They didn't do anything yet. Will they do it? Well, I don't know, but they certainly didn't do it, and the article gave you the impression that they did. But what they did was salami off the number of jobs and salami off the principal of the loan, leave the remaining people there, and make the term smaller to only 2 years. So basically, 200 people have to have a pulse for 2 years, and we'll forgive the loan. And guess what? We've already given you the money to do this, and guess what? If you default, it's on the taxpayers. This is the nonsense and the garbage, and the crap that is going on, and we just, no elected official, nobody says, this, you try doing that. I tried doing that. What's going to happen to us?
Wow. So they're going to get forgiven that loan completely?
Yeah, they're going to get forgiven that loan completely because they've already got the money to pay the jobs, basically. And let's just say they don't, and they close up shop and walk out tomorrow.
Right.
There's no cosigner. There's no nothing. Here's another one on the taxpayers, and it's just it's absolutely insane. And I don't know. I mean, this to me is so blatant, and it's just we're all supposed to say what they and it just kind of adds to the whole dubiousness of this mess. Now let me just mention this before we run out of time. Semaphore is in a name change and a brand change. They're saying they're out of COVID testing. They're doing more genomics testing and things like that. They're now GeneDx. If you take a look at what's there, you think, well, okay, this is what it is. Maybe we've finally got, I'll use the term, the cancer of Semaphore out of the lexicon of the state of Connecticut. We're done with them. This is a horrible thing. We've learned a terrible lesson. It's like the Blob. It's Steve McQueen. Oh, we finally killed the Blob. Well, if you watch the Blob, at the end of the Blob, when they thought they killed the Blob, the little bit of the Blob was still coming through the door. We haven't gotten rid of Semaphore yet. A little trip to the state checkbook tells us we're still paying them for something. We gave them $150,000 in December and January. I don't know what for,
right?
But I'm sure there wasn't a competitive bidding price. We shouldn't be giving them 25 cents. They owe us God knows how much, but this stuff still goes on. They hope you don't see. My function here is that if I can point this out to you, maybe I'm a hopeless Pollyanna or something, but, my God, this light has got to go on.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Are we going to, is he smart? I guess he's not smart enough. I was going to say he's got to realize that there's a cloud of controversy surrounding Semaphore, yet, we're still doing some kind of business with him.
We're still dealing with it.
Smart crook, wouldn't a smart crook go and deal with somebody else now? He's already beat the public to death with Semaphore, so let's let them fade into the sunset and go team up with some other unscrupulous group of people.
I don't know if it's arrogance. I don't know if it's ignorance. I imagine it's some of that. I don't know if it's impairment. I've had my questions about that. But, yeah, a smart crook would do that. It was funny. Yesterday, Lazari and I, we were sharing a video on the Munsters, the episode of the used car lot where the dirty used car dealers put all the cars into the trailer and drive to the next town. That's like criminal conduct 101. This guy just hangs around the scene of the crime. It's absolutely amazing.
Well, that's my point. You figure it's got to be as a certain sense of vanity. Can't touch me. You guys can't touch me. I'm too big to fail. Right? I don't know.
It really, truly is. And I, when you look at how this is orchestrated, and it goes back to those statistics in the beginning, the statistics of being manipulated almost walk in lockstep with the trajectory of Semaphore. You can almost draw two lines on a piece of paper. We're making the definitions broader. We're ramping up the testing using the other line. And then everything meets at the top. We have the equity being pumped. The price is high. We all get out. The testing stops, and then here comes the dump. There's just too many bottles of pickles and cold cuts and bread and sandwiches not to make a picnic here, Lee Elci. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is.
Tony D'Angelo, you can follow him, Tony D'Angelo7 on Twitter. It is a great follow. Tony, I thank you, my friend. I always appreciate our time
together.
Appreciate
it. Thanks, everybody.
All right, kid. Have a good one. Tony D'Angelo, always a pleasure.